Okay, can you please explain instant center and the relationship the instant center has with the center of gravity? Can you please help me? Hey, welcome back to Kevin Wilson SBC. I'm excited to be talking about this with you today. I'm back on the chalkboard. Just want to let you guys know my wife has kicked all my video equipment out of the house. So I'm now down in my crowded, cluttered garage and it's freaking cold. So I got a leather coat on. Y'all forgive me for that. I've tried to set up some lighting. I'll have to figure this lighting out in the garage. So y'all bear with me. But anyways, I'm excited about talking more about instant center and the center of gravity. Predominantly, I get so many questions. Where should I put my instant center? I'm a big tire slick. I'm a small tire slick. I'm a radial. I'm on hard tires. So today, let's focus on the instant center location, which is primarily 4-link, okay? We can talk about ladder bars, but this is primarily 4-link, parallel 4-link, triangulated 4-link, short upper arms, whatever. It's mainly going to be focused on 4-link. So let's jump in and let's talk about that. Okay, let's lay some groundwork. First of all, none of my chalkboard stuff is to scale. The line, let's call that the anti-squat line or the neutral line. The white dot is the center of gravity of this drag car. So the front end, that's the front of the car. Okay, so we're talking the front of the car. The rear end and the 4-link brackets and everything else is back here. Now, the yellow dot is going to represent our instant center location. So here's a picture of a 4-link plot from Jerry Bickle's 4-link wizard, and this is from an actual customer car. I shared that in a previous video. But I got an arrow on where the instant center is. And on this chalkboard, that's going to be represented by the yellow dot. I hope you guys can see this. I know I have some light reflecting off of the board. I apologize. But let's talk about that. All right, let's don't worry about instant center length right now. Let's worry more about where the instant center falls in relation to the anti-squat line. And where it's at right now is 100% anti-squat. We're not above the line, we're not below the line. So in this situation, when the rear end twists and the tires rotate forward, the energy of the 4-link is neither squatting nor separating. All of the energy, theoretically, is driving the car forward. This is no wasted motion, and this is perfect if you have traction. Okay? So the whole goal is the coefficient of traction. And that's what we're trying to solve. So depending on big tire, small tire, radial / hard tire, that really determines what we want to start doing with the yellow dot. Now remember, the center of gravity represents your drag car's balance location. If you were to tie a chain to the center of gravity of your drag car, you could pick the car up, race ready, and the car would be perfectly level to the ground. Think about that. Now imagine the car is perfectly level to the ground. It's off the ground. It's being hung from the center of gravity. And you start putting force on the chassis. Now let's think about this. If I come up here, and that's where my instant center is, I'm going to introduce a tremendous amount of anti-squat, which means I'm going to have a bunch of rear separation, which means I'm going to crush the sidewall of what I got going on here. Now, if I'm a radial car, I'm trying everything I can to crush that sidewall. And I'm trying to overcome the center of gravity to keep the car, front of the car, down. Okay? This, if this were an actual instant center, that would be a pretty extreme instant center. You can make it more extreme if you move the instant center back. So the further away from the center of gravity, the more violent the hit is, but the less amount of time it keeps that hit through the run. Let me say that again. A shorter, higher instant center is definitely going to separate. It's going to do everything in its power to crush the sidewall of the slick and keep it planted. And it's going to react very fast, but it's not going to keep those forces applied as far down the track as a longer instant center. That's a very important principle that I want you to remember. Obviously, when we're above the anti-squat line, we're going to introduce rear end separation. Now, let's talk about this. I see a lot of big tire, slick cars with this scenario. And on a big tire slick, you generally have to run less than 100% anti-squat. Yes, I know there are people who run more than 100% with a big tire slick, but really in those situations, you have some very aggressive valving or air along with valving to control the extension of that shock. And pretty much the shock is resisting extension, and when a shock can't extend, what does the chassis do where the shock is mounted? It pulls the chassis down and then compresses the shock. Now, another important principle is the closer to the center of gravity, the more front end lift you're introducing. If you're fighting wheelies on the hit, then you need to shorten your instant center. Think about that. When you shorten the instant center, there is more weight in front of the instant center. Therefore, your leverage is less, and you're having to move more weight than you are here. My dad's first T-bucket back in the mid-70s, it was a kit frame. His very first T-bucket was a kit frame. And he had long ladder bars that came up almost to the back of the block. He ran dirt track tires on it that he got from Somerville Speedway, from one of the Maynard brothers. And that T-bucket had a 94 or 95 inch wheelbase. A street rod back in the mid 70s with a 350 and an LT1 solid cam would lift the front tires about 6 inches off the ground. If you don't believe me, you get with Lucky Owens in Charleston, South Carolina, and ask Lucky Owens how the first T-bucket pulled the front wheels off the ground. But the ladder bar went up to the back of the freaking block. The further up the instant center, the more the front end is going to come up. And if you're no prepping or you're street racing, you might want to think about that. You might want to remember that. Now remember the unequal length 4-length video I did a couple weeks ago. Why did I make that video? When you have shorter upper bars, longer lower bars, the geometry during the run of your instant center changes. And it changes to your benefit. Let's say on a unequal length 4-length bar setup, your instant center starts about right there. So in this picture, we have a shorter instant center. It's above the anti-squat line, so it's going to react quick. It's going to separate. It's going to plant the tire to the track pretty quickly. And as the chassis separates, the rear end goes down and the front end begins to come up. Because the upper bars are shorter than the lower bars, you have a very cool advantage. As all of those actions happen, this instant center length gets longer. Yes, it rises. The instant center height comes up a little bit, which is going to continue to provide separation. But more importantly, as you lengthen your instant center during the run, you are continuing to promote weight transfer to the rear. Because as I get closer to the center of gravity, the easier the suspension can move weight to the rear of the vehicle. So with the shorter upper bars, I can be pretty aggressive with my anti-squat. I'm going to have some good extension valving now. But during the run and on the hit and during the run, as the chassis begins to move, this instant center is going to continue to help promote weight transfer. That is very important. Some very common instant center lengths for big tire slick cars are between 52 to 60 inches, depending on where your center of gravity is. I can't just tell you, hey, put it at 60 inches, because at 60 inches, you may be up here, right? And balance. Anything that's way out of balance, you put a big tire slick car, or small tire slick car for that matter, and you start getting, 70, 80 inches on a 103 to 113 inch wheelbase car, you're out of balance. And you're actually going to create so much squat, you're going to introduce some weirdness. The chassis is not going to be happy, and you're going to chatter the tires. You're going to introduce shake. It's just not going to be good. So, an extreme on any end of this spectrum is not in balance. You have to find balance in your chassis. You have to find balance in your chassis. this instant center length in relation to the center of gravity, to your wheelbase, to the front and rear weights, your power levels, your power management, it all works together in conjunction with your front and rear shocks, front and rear shock valving, front and rear shock springs. It has to work together for the pieces. All right, so above the center of gravity, I'm pushing down on the front of the car. And I'm going to introduce a tremendous amount of separation, which means I got to have some very advanced shock valving to help control that and allow it to come in gradually. You don't want to, on the hit, take your shock all the way to extended in the first half second. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're done. You've upset the chassis. Your run's done. You don't want to collapse the shock in the first half second. You're done. There's nowhere else for the load to go other than crush the sidewall, and more than likely you just damage your shocks. Okay, so an extreme is not in balance, and you got to keep things in balance. So generally on a small tire, no prep car, slick car, I'm going to be right around in this area, or maybe even a little higher, especially with an unequal length 4-link bar. And I don't care what you do on the suspension, you got to control power. You can't take 1,500 horsepower, bring it up to 4,000 RPMs and just dump it all. If it's a street, it's probably going to be like a track. It might as well just be like a track then. Okay? So power management, and power management, big tire, small tire, I don't care what you got, is your friend. I don't care if any suspension guy tells you he can tune your suspension and you can dump all 1,500 horsepower on the hit on the street and it's going to go. Hey, send them to me. I want to learn from them. Power management. Okay, guys? You got to have it. I don't care what you do here. You got to have it. Now, I'm on a big tire, no prep. I'm out here. Small tire, no prep. Remember, I'm going to be a little bit more back here. Because with a tube, and I don't generally run tubes in big tires. In my small tire cars, I highly recommend tubes. Highly recommend tubes. And the tube is going to support the weight of the vehicle, and the sidewall is going to be allowed to provide traction. I can run a shorter instant center with a small tire and the right valving. Now this video is not about shock valving, but it's really difficult to talk about all this without talking about shocks. Okay, so my big tire is going to be about right there. All right, radial guys, my radial guys out there, we're somewhere up in here. We're trying our best to take that center of gravity and push it down. We're trying to overcome the center of gravity. Now, does that mean we're not going to have power wheelies? Sure. But if you have a radial car that's power wheeling, bring the power in sooner. Bring it in quicker. And work on getting the center of gravity down faster in the run instead of allowing it to work on the center of gravity further out in the run. But this right here, remember, the perfect world is on the anti-squat line. Now, why do I bring that up? Guys, the closer you can get to the anti-squat line, whether it's over 100 or below 100, the more energy you're putting and moving the car forward. Think about that. Any extreme below, above, while it may be needed, you're using energy, torque, and horsepower to move things back here and not forward. Now, of course, the car is going to go forward. Okay, we understand that. However, what I'm trying to tell you is the more you can figure out how to get here, or here, or here, or here, or here, you're putting more energy to work moving your car forward. Hey, listen, this is not a recap of 4-link bar angles. That's not what this video was intended. But this was just a short video as a supplement, a reminder, a refresher. And instant center is not some dark magic out there. It's physics, guys. And I've had a lot of questions on the Jerry Bickle 4-link wizard software. It's absolutely worth it, especially if you're doing more than one car. If you just got one drag car and you're working on that, the online tools are amazing. However, for me, with all of the remote suspension work and in-shop work I do, I'm able to quickly plot the car, have some beautiful pictures. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and I can save each customer's file. So for future consultations, I can pull up your 4-link plot and go from there. Once you put in all of the bolt hole locations on the rear end brackets and the chassis brackets, and you have the center, you have the ride height of the vehicle, it is so easy to go in and make changes and see what happens to the instant center length and height. I can very quickly in the software move the bottom bar up 1 hole on the rear end and go from there. You big tire guys out there, big tire slick guys out there, getting a lot of questions about no prep. I'm getting a lot of people saying they're tired of having a big tire car on no prep get outran by all these small tire cars. Well, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. These small tire cars have figured it out, guys. Do you big tire slick cars on no prep? Then you got to think about these bar angles a little bit better. On the bottom bar, on a prep track big tire car, I generally do not run the bar uphill. And when I say uphill, what I mean is from the rear end to the chassis going up. Okay? I generally do not run a bottom bar uphill on a big tire slick car. It's either level, which means 0 degree level, or 0.1, 0.25 degrees up. Okay? I generally don't go more up than that. And I really try to avoid a downhill bar angle on a big tire slick car. On the car that I just talked about from the shop, I had no choice. I had to compromise somewhere, but I pretty much doggone near had that bottom bar level. Why is the bottom bar angle so critical on a big tire slick car? On a big tire slick car, when you begin to introduce too much uphill bar angle from the rear end to the chassis, the slick really begins to run over itself. Even with not so aggressive of a top bar, you are now introducing a little bit too much anti-squat on the big tire slick. You know what? Think about the big tire slick. Look at these guys running 36-inch tall slicks. Look at how much sidewall is on that slick. With that much sidewall, you can daggum near run a solid suspension. And the sidewall of the slick acts as a shock. My 23 altered My 23 altered is a hardtail. It's a solid mount rear end. And the 33-inch tall slicks sidewall act as the shock. Think about that, guys. I have a 23 altered that ran 118 60-foots without rear shocks and a solid axle front end. There were no shocks on the car. It had a 33-inch tall Hoosier, and the sidewall was my shock. Think about that. Okay? With these 36-inch tall slicks, it's freaking amazing what you can begin to do with shock technology. Let me close on this, and I don't want to knock any celebrities out there. That's not my game. But I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of famous street racers that have TV shows, and I watch a lot of their YouTube channels. And you know what? Those guys are so freaking blessed, it's unreal. They get new chrome moly titanium chassis every year. And you know, I'm happy for those guys. I truly am. But those guys went from back half cars to chrome moly, Jerry Bickle, whatever, professional built cars, and you know, years. They worked their butts off. Kudos to them. I was watching a YouTube video the other night of some of those guys getting ready for America's List, and I'm not going to say who it was, because I actually enjoy this racer and have a lot of respect for this racer. But these two racers were talking, and the one racer asked the other, he said, how much front end travel do you have in your car before we go test? And the answer was, I don't know. And then the next question was, well, what shocks do you have? Why am I bringing this up? That blows my mind, guys. I'm going to be straight up with you. Because if I'm driving a race car, I'm going to know everything about that car. I'm going to know how much front end travel it's got. I'm going to know if I've limited the front end. I'm going to know my shock valving. I'm going to know the dyno graphs of the front and rear shocks. I'm going to know the installed height of my shocks. I'm going to know my car. And if you don't know your car, or you don't know how much front end travel you have, or you don't know where your instant center length and height are, it's going to be really difficult for you to get quality help, because everyone out there has got an opinion. And at the racetrack, you will get so turned around with 5 guys having 10 opinions, you're going to get yourself hurt. You're going to put that car on the wall, or worse yet, you're going to put that car in the other driver's car. Guys, take the time to understand this stuff. Understand your car. Understand what your car is doing. If you're not videoing your car and watching it and slowing it down, you are missing it. Video, and data. Data log. Those are your friends. Shock travel sensors, data logging, drive shaft speed, O2s. I'm now putting EGTs in the blown small block Chevrolet. All 8 cylinders are going to have EGTs, because you can have wideband O2s, but with blown methanol, now that I'm going up in boost, I felt like I was late to the game. You know, Bill, SRC Garage, or Old Man Garage, talked about this the other day. The wideband O2 is a great data log point, but it's too late. Not only that, it's the average of how many ever tubes are in that collector. And in my case, I got a wideband on each side, so I'm reading the average of the odd bank and the even bank. God forbid cylinder number 4 is lean, because I don't know it. With EGTs, I'm going to know what each cylinder is doing. So for all my blown methanol roots blower friends out there, what EGTs am I shooting for? I have no idea. I know I will get in touch with Alky Digger and others and get some info, but right now, guys, I don't even know what I'm shooting for. I know I need to be safe. I know I'm going to be running around 27, 28 pounds of boost in the Studebaker on methanol. With a roots blown mower, I'm not sure what EGTs I'm looking for. I think I need to be 1 inch away from the head. I'm not even sure how far to put the transducer in. And I'm not really sure what to do with timing at 28 pounds of boost on methanol with a roots blower motor, with a MSD8 digital and a single coil running an 18 volt alternator. I'm not even sure where to start with timing. With 21 pounds of boost on a roots blown application, the max timing was 31. And I'm not even sure if that's low or high. But guys, give me some feedback, please. For those of you who may have run a roots blown methanol motor, especially a small block or big block Chevy, help me out. What EGTs am I looking for? What kind of timing should I be shooting for through the traps at 27, 28 pounds of boost? Hey, I hope this was a fun video for you. And remember, we're trying to do 3 things. We're trying to go fast. We're trying to go straight. And we're trying to be safe. Have a good night. I'm getting back in the warm house.